So in this episode, the Lower Decks crew somehow end up in an alien dungeon and don't know how they got there. Tendi thinks that maybe she got sent there because she had been replicating too much ice. The floor starts ascending and raises them into what looks like that Klingon courtroom in Star Trek VI, and the bridge crew is suspended in a tractor beam. Instead of a Klingon courtroom, it's a room full of these aliens called primes. They are told that they are witnesses and are given a horn into which they must only speak the truth. Their interrogator, Klar, asks Mariner to tell him about the day the Cerritos met with the Clicket ship Twirk, whatever that is. Then there's a flashback to Mariner and Boimler discussing how Roga Danar outsmarted Picard, but Mariner thought Khan was a much more formidable villain. A red alert goes off because Rutherford was messing with the red alert speakers. Mariner and Boimler go to the bridge, and Mariner tells Boimler not to tell them what happened because if he did, they'd get sent back to Earth, where there's nothing to do but hang out at vineyards and soul food restaurants. I'm sure there's more to do than that, but that's mainly what Picard and Sisko do. The Clickets are angry at Captain Freeman for showing gratitude for the map they gave her, which I guess is insulting in their culture. Freeman asks Boimler what he thinks they should do, and he suggests Evasive Maneuver 88, which everyone thinks is a terrible idea. Freeman then tells Mariner to send them a message, which she interprets to mean firing the phasers at them, but Freeman had in mind inviting them to dinner. This causes the Clickets to fire back. Klar interjects to ask Mariner about the map Captain Freeman was given, but Mariner doesn't know anything about it, so he threatens to place her in the tank of contempt, which is full of eels. Boimler insists she's telling the truth, so Klar doesn't throw her in the eel tank. Klar then asks Rutherford to tell him about a different stardate. He tells Klar about the day that Shax asks him to update his implant with Romulan flight manuals. While he's updating, Shax asks him if he has all his shots, because he doesn't want him to get infected with denobulan flesh-eating bacteria. He loses consciousness due to the update, and when he comes to, he is in a shuttlecraft and Shax is congratulating him on nerve-pinching some Vulcans whose uniforms they appear to be wearing. He, Shax, and Billup jump out of the shuttlecraft and parachute down to a planet when Rutherford's implant restarts and he loses consciousness again. He regains consciousness in the middle of a museum and Shax is climbing up a Romulan bird of prey. They attract the attention of a guard and Shax tells Rutherford to distract him with a fan dance like Uhura did in Star Trek V. His implant reboots again, and then he regains consciousness in a spacesuit in the middle of space. It turns out he was standing on top of a cloaked bird of prey that uncloaked when he banged on it. Billups is right beside him, but he has nitrogen intoxication and only has 60 seconds of air left. Shax shows up with the shuttlecraft and tells him to get in when Rutherford's implant restarts again to update its Klingon fonts, and he collapses onto the shuttlecraft's controls. He then regains consciousness in the middle of a Gorn wedding, and they try to eat him. Then Klar is annoyed by this tangent he's taken and wants details about how he stole the bird of prey. He levitates Rutherford over the eel tank and asks Tendi if she and Commander Ransom have ever set foot in the Romulan neutral zone. She tells him about a day that she got assigned to clean the conference rooms, and Mariner tells her that she'll just be wiping Dr. Ta'ana's cat fur off of chairs. Tendi then describes a classified mission she was recruited for, so words and faces are censored, which annoys Klar. In her story, Ransom takes out the map that Klar had been asking about that will lead them to the neutral zone. Ransom tells Tendi that her job is to extract Ransom and some other guys if they run into trouble. They were flying the Romulan bird of prey that Rutherford was standing on. They beam down to Romulus and catch two Romulans talking about how much they hate Remans and beat them up. Ransom and the other guys grab the package they came to get, and when some other Romulan guards show up, Tendi beats them all up too, even though she was just supposed to beam them out of there. Klar doesn't believe that Tendi beat up a bunch of Romulans with martial arts, so he dumps her, Mariner, and Rutherford into the eel tank. Klar wants to know what was inside the package that they stole, but none of them know. Klar refuses to believe that the crew knows so little about what was going on, and Boimler says that they mess up all the time, like every time Q shows up. Then there's a flashback to Q taking them to a planet where they're all dressed up like chess pieces to prove that humanity is worth saving. Another example he gives is how Ransom will date aliens that he doesn't do any research for, and how he ended up dating a salt vampire. Also, there's a flashback to when everyone on the ship was being replaced by a person of a different species and or gender who didn't know who Dr. Ta'ana was. Boimler insists that Starfleet crews often don't know what's going on, like Picard didn't know about the Borg, Kirk didn't know about the giant Spock on Phylos, and Dr. Crusher didn't know about the ghost in the lamp, so this trial is unfair. It turns out, though, that it wasn't a trial. It was a party for the crew for rescuing Klar from the Romulans. It turns out that he was the one inside the package that Commander Ransom stole from Romulus. Some guy guy then walks in and tells them that their time is up in the room that they rented. Captain Freeman agrees to keep the crew more informed from now on, but won't tell them about why Clar was being held captive by the Romulans, or why they got thrown into a tank of eels. Then Q shows up, but they tell him to go away because they're done with random stuff today. I love this episode. It was one of the funnier ones and had lots of references that made me say, I know what that is. Also, I like that they got John Delancey back to play Q again.